Nice to see new faces. Faces we don't see often. I have to confess, I looked, how about everybody here wave to the people on the screen? There's two good groups on both sides that, oh, they're not there. Oh, here, wave. Yeah, no, it's fine. Here, you can see them here too. There we go.
Getting fancy.
Oh, we are so fancy, yeah. I looked at the list of participants and I thought, oh, there's a new person here whose name I didn't know. And I looked at it and it said camera. I was like, camera. Oh, wait a minute. We'll be getting to know that one. No. This is how I entertain myself. So we are turning towards Dogen's fascicle, the Genjo Koan. I think it's interesting that we're doing that. I just sort of like that popped into my head. We should do the Genjo Koan. I tried to talk myself out of it. It kept coming up. And then I found out that Norman Fisher is beginning to teach the Genjo Koan at Everyday Zen. And then I found out that Berkeley Zen Center just finished studying the Genjo Koan, and Zen Center somebody's teaching the Genjo Koan there. And I thought there's something about these times where we need the Genjo Koan. Some of us have studied it before, maybe studied a lot. The Genjo Koan, you can do this forever, and I think ancient and current wisdom is. I don't know about you, but it's like, what do you do? What do you do in this world? So this is where we're going to ground. And I'm really committed to not only talking about the Genjo Koan, which is not a small thing in itself, all of us, but to bring it forward in a way that's relevant each time, meaning through the wisdom or the teachings of indigenous peoples or people of color, or to give it a different language that's current day. So we don't think we don't get too far away and get philosophical and forget. It's all about how do we show up? How do we meet this moment? How do we create and co-create the world that we want to be living in for ourselves and for all the generations to come? So we're doing a little on Tuesdays, we're doing a little on Thursdays, and I can't remember what I've done in each place, and probably you can't remember what happened last week either. So I always figure it's fine. We'll just keep going. And so I'm going to do a quick review of the first section of the Genjo Koan. The way Dogen presents things, Dogen is one of our primary ancestors, is it's in perfect balance. He presents something as it is, or the way we perceive it is as human beings. And then he presents it as the way it isn't, saying, maybe we could say through the eyes of a Buddha, that if you could see everything is ephemeral and empty and moving and interconnected. And the way it is the way we think it is, of course, is because we're human beings and we see in dualities as we see. So it starts out with, there is delusion and realization. That's what we think, right? There's delusion, and then there's getting it, waking up. There's practice, there's birth, there's death, there's Buddhas, there's sentient beings. We see all these things and we believe them, right? And we don't want to bypass that. But then he also says, there is no abiding self. It really is this whole illusion that we're in the center of it and that we're over here and they're over there, or whatever it is, that thing out there is solid, controllable. Now we know it's not. The world is letting us know. We always sort of knew that. Everything is flowing and processed and arising and passing, and it's not solid and dense the way that we think it is. It is, and it isn't. And then he comes back to a third, which is the place of living the middle way, which is how do we, which is the Genjo Koan, the koan of how do you live both taking care of the particular, taking care of yourself, taking care of other people, not bypassing birth or death or suffering or awakeness, and also simultaneously be aware that it's so much more than we think it is. Zazen is the embodiment of that. You sit down, you breathe, you watch your thoughts, the sensations, feelings. It's like, whoa, this self is, well, feels pretty solid. That thing I'm thinking about is pretty solid. I liked it, I didn't like it. All the worries, the world, the news. And you also, there is a process in sitting of just breathing. And the more you just sit and breathe, solid and upright, something begins to open. It's not like you turn into something else or the world turns into something else, but there is a more settled, open, spacious awareness. And it's simultaneous because you're still watching thoughts coming and going. You still have a feeling of that you're a person and you like what you like and you don't like, but it opens somehow. It's aerated, it's moving. Do you have a sense of what I'm talking about? And then of course you like one and you don't like the other one. It's like, whoa, I was really calm a minute ago, and now, man, I'm a mess. That same old messy person is, or wow, I'm pretty good. I'm sort of starting to get this, and then you breathe, and then it opens. But we think we're going to get to some solid place, and then we keep setting ourselves up against ourselves instead of just like Genjo Koan is to embody the deepest spiritual isness of the moment. And that from there, then the feeling is, which is my experience too, is that my next is in a world where we are asked to respond as human beings moment after moment, and the world is coming forward and conditioning us and asking us of that in this place that we can live the deepest koan of how do we be a good person? What's the appropriate response? How is it to not cause harm? How is it to live with joy that doesn't exclude the sorrow? And how do we not turn away from the sorrow and also be amazed and allow that when you go outside and see forms and hear sounds, that it's an amazing summer day and the light and the breeze and it's all of it. But of course, we human beings like to make things small because then we have some sense we're in control or we know what's going on. So it says, Buddhism really is, the Buddha way is about leaping clear of all of this. And when you leap clear of being attached either to this one thing, which we call delusion, or being attached to realization or being awake, or is when you leap clear, then you're completely here. You are completely here, and there is birth and death, delusion and realization, sentient beings and Buddhas. It's the same world, but it's different. And in this world, it goes on. We get attached, blossoms fall. We want these flowers to last forever, but why they're beautiful is they're ephemeral. And in aversion, we think we shouldn't get angry, right? But of course, you're a human being. When you're angry, know that you're angry. What you do with it is a whole other thing. Aversion happens and weeds spread in aversion. Weeds are. Just study the weeds. how do you want to be in relationship with it? Don't make weeds bad and flowers good. How do we course in this life? So the human world is radically affirmed. There are problems. We affirm those very problems as the path and the way, and there is nothing outside of, there is no place you're going to get to that's outside of this. It's right here. We like that and we don't like that. Okay. Then Dogen says, to carry yourself forward and experience myriad things is delusion. So he's going to tell you, you want to know what delusion is? It's when you think you have a self and you think it's going forward, it's getting up every day and it's going into the world. And it's like, I'm having my experience and there's an experience out there that's affecting me. And we're processing it and we're believing it through all of our old karmic patterns and beliefs, and we just keep going forward. Do you have to, I sort of love that image actually, because I know that in myself, to carry myself forward. I mean, do it for a minute, carry yourself forward. You can exaggerate it a little bit, but I think we know what this feels like. Okay. But that's what we do. Just, yeah, you get a little more sense of humor about it, and you get a little bit more of a sense of like, ay. I just carried myself forward again, and whoa, how many times have I done that one? And well, it's a little different this time, but the beautiful thing, okay, so that's the one side. The other side of it is then Dogen says, is the balance and the contrast of carrying the self forward is being awake, which is that the whole world is coming forward to hold you and awaken you. You're just in the middle of everything, and everything is you and everything is not you. And we're held in space. We are held in this moment, which is all moments, it's wide, it's open, it's holographic. I don't even know how to, I mean, but we do have a sense of the moment. There are moments when Dogen says body and mind drop away, and you're just here. You're nobody special, and you're nobody bad. You're not lesser, you're not more than, you're just here with everything. And that's what being awake is. We're in the world and we are the world. And sound, sensations in the body, a thought comes and goes, a breath comes and goes. And it's not this experience is me and those experiences are not me. It's just experience. Things arising, passing. And of course, the minute you try to put it into words and grasp it and think whether you had it or not, then you turn it into something. But to just be in pure and intimate experience and to entrust yourself to it, because it does take trust. Because it means you're not in charge in the same way that you think. And especially when we get scared, like in these times, we go back to our coping mechanisms, and people get scared and angry and defended, and take a breath, come back. Where are we now? And then you have access to the whole world to help you and all beings know what's the appropriate response to this moment. Because this moment has never happened before. So how do we show up? Fresh and new, and aware that we're deluded human beings, which now is the most amazing thing about this. And this is one of the things that I love the most about Buddhism. I love the most, well, I probably love a lot of things about this, is then it says, those who have great delusion are Buddhas. Let that in. If you are greatly deluded, which if you think you're not, you better look again. You are a Buddha. Buddhas are deluded. Buddhas have not transcended. Buddhists just know they're deluded, that's all. Isn't that reassuring somehow? Doesn't that just like blow open? I mean, I've studied this for a long time. A lot of you have too. And there's still some part of me that just thinks as soon as I get over this, then I'll be a Buddha. You know, it's just like, no, Buddhists just know. That's all. They've just studied the self. They understand. Where we get all tangled up is we think, whoa, that was really deluded. That was really stupid. That person over there, that really is. And if that other political party would stop doing that, and if those were is just come back. It's not that we don't want to respond, it's how and where we respond to. Okay, those who have great those who have great realization of delusion are Buddhas, and those who are greatly deluded about realization are sentient beings. So if you think that there is some place that you're going to get to, some projected perfect place out there that is going to be different than this, that's going to be a constant state, you are greatly deluded about realization. Because realization is not a solid state. Realization is alive. It's a way of living. It's awake, right in the midst of it all. It just turns, Dogen does that, is he just turns everything upside down. And he turns it upside down. It's not what you think it is. Just show up. And then he says, and further, those who continue realizing beyond realization, wait a minute, further, there are those who continue realizing beyond realization and who are in delusion throughout delusion. So, there's no end to it. This is continuous practice. Dogen's teaching, the teaching of Zazen, the teaching not that somebody put on top of me, but what I now know and what we're transmitting and helping each other remember is this is just continuous practice. Experience, experience, experience. Thoughts come and go. You like it, you don't like it. You're deluded, you're awake. Already, the fact that you think you are or aren't is you've already pulled yourself out of it. Just come back to the experience. Feel it. If you're angry, it's not, I'm not angry. It's like if there is anger, be willing to feel it. Breathe with it for yourself and for all beings. If there's shame, if there's blame, if there's greed, I want it. They took it away from me, is like come back and feel it all the way through in the most intimate way, which is there's no gap. It's just like, oh, anger arising. And probably, I mean, maybe not you, but I should just speak for myself, but anger arises. I mean, always, but in these times, anger arises. It's why, and then we start doing our thing with anger, right? And then we think, whoa, how are we going to get out of this? Come back. Take a breath right in the center of anger and let it open, and then see what happens next and next. So, a little bit more. Dogen then says, I think these things are great. Buddhas who are truly Buddhas do not necessarily notice that they are Buddhas. However, they are actualized Buddhas who go on actualizing being Buddhas. So if you think you're walking around thinking you're a Buddha, or I get really nervous when some teachers say they're enlightened. I mean, that's fine. But is Buddhas don't know they're anybody special. They're just you and me waking up. That's kind of beautiful. Of course, you're setting yourself up the minute you think that you're turned into a Buddha, because then the next minute you're going to be not Buddha, right? It's just be here. Just be here with and for everybody else. And when you see forms and hear sounds, fully engage body and mind. That's when you are intimate with everything. And everything can teach you and help you. And you can help and teach, but it's not you or them. It's just beingness. Study the self. Study the Buddha way is to study the self. Be honest. Don't try to make yourself be somebody other than you are. It's like you want to be nice. When you're nice, I mean, and it feels nice and authentic, that's really wonderful. But to try to paint on niceness on top of what doesn't feel, what feels divided, is please be here with it. Study it all the way through. And the more that you do that, the more you can let go. And the more you let go, the more you are actualized and actualizing the whole world as it is, which is alive and moving, experience, experience, experience. And the more you do that, there's nothing that remains after each moment. There's just the next step and the next step of trying to meet yourself and all beings and to bring forward the world that we want to live. So here's where I thought I would take a couple of minutes. And so what might this look like in the world? Maybe some of you saw in the news that the Pope went to Canada. And someone gave me the language today because they came from a Catholic background and essentially did penance, said I'm acknowledged, was really willing to feel the pain of what had happened in Indian boarding schools and what was done by the Catholic Church, and to listen deeply and to meet face to face and say, I'm sorry. To let the whole world come forward instead of carrying forward, I'm the Pope and we've been doing this, and I mean, whatever, just not just the Pope, we all do that, but to be touched by the world. So I wanted to read you a little bit because I read the news too, but I found this in the Vatican News. Here's survivors of government-funded church-run residential schools have for years hoped for a papal apology on their own territory. Thousands of children, somebody told me today, maybe tens of thousands. Nobody knows, were torn from their families, suffered physical and verbal, psychological and spiritual abuse. Often family members don't even know where they were taken to, much less what happened to them, or if they died, or if they were put in mass grave. I mean, all of these things happened. So here's what the Pope said. After praying silently at the cemetery of the indigenous peoples of the Makwasis in the Church of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows, the Pope spoke in the Bear Park powwow grounds before a delegation of indigenous leaders from all over the country. I am here, he said, because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that of again asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry. To me, this is an enactment of Genjo Koan. Deep honesty, not turning away, and of allowing out of this an appropriate response that responds to the whole world, that includes people in front of him and who have come to him and said, Do you understand the suffering that we've been carrying? Sorry for the ways in which regrettably many Christians supported the colonizing mentality of the powers that oppress the indigenous peoples. I am sorry. I ask forgiveness in particular for the ways in which many members of the church and of religious communities cooperated, not least through their indifference, in projects of cultural destruction and forced assimilation promoted by the governments of that time, which culminated in the system of residential schools. What the Christian faith tells us is that this was a devastating error, incompatible with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's amazing. This is amazing to me. When we think it's so awful. There's so many awful things in the world, and there are so many good people. So many good people letting the world touch them and listening deeply and responding. I recall the meetings we had in Rome 4 months ago. At that time, I was given 2 pairs of moccasins as a sign of the suffering endured by indigenous people, particularly those who unfortunately never came back from the residential schools. I was asked to return the moccasins when I came to Canada, and I will do so at the end of these words, in which I would like to reflect on this symbol, which over the past few months has kept alive my sense of sorrow, indignation, and shame. He sat with the moccasins. How much can we sit with the sorrow of everything that we're feeling about the world? Just sit with it, breathe with it, not to get depressed, but to be touched by it. And I don't think you can do that unless you have a practice, unless you have a deep spiritual, religious, some kind of a committed practice and a sangha, a community in which we say, we're going to sit with all of this together because there is goodness. And I'm so sorry. And I'm not going to turn away. Forgetfulness leads to indifference, and has been said the opposite of love is not hatred, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. That's by Eli Wiesel. Am I saying his name? Yeah. Remembering the devastating experiences in residential schools is shocking, indignant, painful, but necessary. Study the self. That's the Buddha way. Study what we human beings do. Not as out there, but what we do when we get scared or we want something. And the more we do that, we can forget, not in a kind of indifference, but if it drops away and the world opens up and we're willing to touch and be in relationship with our own hearts and the world. And when we do that, we wake up, and as we wake up, the whole world wakes up. Something profound happened in that moment. The indigenous leaders came to Rome, the Pope received and opened up, the Pope opened up, and something, and there's more of a process to happen, of course, but something happens in these moments. And then nothing happened. No trace of realization remains, and this no trace continues endlessly. I might even go so far as to say that this no trace is love. It's unconditioned love, which is just the nature of everything. And the goodness is the nature of everything. We just all are more than a little deluded or a little deluded. And life is one continuous mistake, and you pick up one thing and you pick up the whole world. So how can each one of us we want to do something about the world. And please, some of us will do whatever you need to do or want to do or are called to do, but to really most profoundly take care of this moment, to take care of your own heart and your own state of mind. And then with the sense of dedicating it to the whole world, which we'll do as we close today. We'll dedicate to the well-being of Sangha members and for people who have died, and we'll dedicate it to the people suffering wherever they are, and to people wherever they're knowing happiness is. Please be as happy as you can in the moment, please. Alive. So we're going to have, I don't know, each person 3 minutes. I think I'll put people in groups of 3. Maybe there'll be a group of 4. The question I came to is